I'm Mike of Mike and Allie's Vintage eBay and Etsy stores, and today we're at the layout. We're going to take a look at some of our HO scale train cars that we have for sale in our stores. As you can see, Beltline Yard is overflowing with freight cars. All of these cars over here need to be switched to local industries, but to do that, we've got to get rid of these cars on the first track here. And that's where you come in, because you can go to our eBay or Etsy stores and buy these cars for your own railroad. And then I can get these other ones switched to where they go. Before we get started looking at each car, I want to remind you to take a moment and hit the like button down below, as well as the subscribe button. Let's get started. See what we have for you. All right, we've got one of our Beltline engines here pulling the train into view as we take a look at each individual car in the train. First one up is this 40-foot boxcar lettered for the Minneapolis and St. Louis. This is a lifelike boxcar, and all of these cars, 70s, 80s, there might be one or two of them that came out in the early 90s or late 60s. Unfortunately, I really don't have specific dates for them, just kind of ranges, and some of them we can narrow down a little bit more, like the AHM cars. There's a couple of those in here, and we know that those are no newer than early 80s because that's about the time that AHM went under. This, again, though, is a lifelike product. It's got the outside bracing on it. This type of boxcar was common back, I guess what you would say, the golden age of railroading, but they didn't fully go away until well into the 1970s. Even in the 70s, you would occasionally see one of these types of boxcars still in an occasional train. I think especially out in the Midwest, they got used for grain service on some of the old branch lines that were too light for the covered hoppers. Again, truck-mounted horn hook couplers, and they need changed. I have a little issue with this car staying hooked up to the engine here. I would definitely cut the couplers off and body mount some KDs on there, and then maybe put some metal wheels on it, and then that thing will be good to go. As you can see, next in line we've got a tank car here. It's lettered for DuPont. This is a Tyco tank car, 40 foot. Now, Tyco not always known for the most prototypical paint jobs. Of course, a lot of them back in that day didn't necessarily follow prototype practices. It was more about what looked good to get the interest of kids. That was the big market back then. But this one is somewhat prototypical. I have seen actual pictures of real-life tank cars for DuPont that were done in this green and yellow paint scheme. This one is missing ladders on both sides, but it does have the rails, and I think all of the steps are on there. I can't say that with 100% certainty, but if there's one missing, we'll have it listed on the eBay listing. And that's the same thing with all of these. If there's something amiss, something that's broken off, something that needs to be worked on, or something like that, I'll note it in the listing for that particular car. We move along now. And we're giving the engine a workout here. This is a 40-foot boxcar lettered for the Santa Fe, and this was made by AHM. Actually, let me rephrase that. It was actually made by River Rossi, but it was sold through AHM. And so that means this one is no newer than early 80s, probably 1970s. It does have the moving doors on each side. Take a look right here. I'm going to point this out right here with this little piece of track. I don't know if this was a beginning attempt by somebody to do some weathering, or if it's just something that got spilled on it, or what. Just my opinion. I would use that as a starting point for a weathering project. I think it actually kind of gives a little character to it, and you know, maybe try to match that color up with some chalks and do a full weathering job on the boxcar, and I think it would look really cool that way. Now we've got coming up a Union Pacific gondola. This was made by Bachmann. It's a 40-foot gondola, and interesting. You see this occasionally on some of the older train cars. They don't have all of the information on them. They just have the railroad and then a number for it. They don't put like the capacity and all that on there. But you know, if you want to use this and you want to have that information on it, data sheets are easy to find. You can find them at any hobby shop or model railroad website. Even on eBay you'll find them. Or, hey, if you're adventurous enough, you can even make them yourself and buy some decal film and just print it off of your computer. I've done that with some actual decals before, and it's actually kind of fun to do that. Coming up next, we've got one that I think Bachmann made a million of. I see these things all the time online, at train shows, you know, wherever there's used train cars around. There always seems to be at least one of these Milwaukee Road boxcars in the mix. It's a 50-foot plug door boxcar, and I actually have one in my fleet as well. The only difference is mine has a silver roof. This one is full yellow all the way around. It has been weighted too. Somebody put some additional weight in it, so it's a good heavy car, which I tell you what, as you probably know, when they're too light, they can have trouble staying on the track, but that one should not have any issue whatsoever. Coming into view now, we've got a little 30-foot open hopper car, lettered for the Georgia Railroad. This is a lifelike car. I think this may be from the 1980s, but I'm not 100% certain on that. It's a car I don't think it's been used a whole lot. It looks almost new. It's in real nice shape. Actually, it needs a good weathering. That's what it really needs. But Georgia Railroad was a line that I think eventually became part of the Southern Railway back in the days before Southern merged with the Norfolk and Western. And then right behind that, you see another tank car there, that red Koppers chemical tank car. That's a lifelike car as well. Again, it's a 40-foot length, 40 scale foot. Let me make that clear so somebody doesn't put in the comment, oh, it's really not 40 feet, but no, it is scale, for HO scale. It's kind of toy-like to me. If I was going to keep it and use it, I would probably repaint it and maybe just a plain black or white and letter it for General American or Shippers Car Line or Union Tank Car or something like that. But you may like it this way, just want to add some data information to it. It does need some handrails and ladders. It is missing those, but again, detail parts like that you can find just about any model train shop or any model train website. Again, even on eBay and Etsy, places like that. Real easy to find. Or you might have junked cars that you can take them off of as well. And speaking of that, if you've got any junked box cars, you might want to steal the door off of it to put on this one. This is a Louisville and Nashville 40-foot box car. Again, made by Lifelike. The other side is missing a door. These are sliding doors. But again, if you have like a junked 40-foot box car, it doesn't have to be a Lifelike. You could modify one off of an Athearn or Bachmann or whatever, Tyco, and put it on there. You know, if you have to glue it in place, you could do that. Actually, that is somewhat prototypical. I have seen pictures of box cars where the doors had to be replaced, and so you wind up with a blue box car with a yellow door or something crazy like that. So, you know, if you do something like that, you know what? You're actually following prototype practice. And anyway, as there's another YouTube channel guy says, it's your railroad. You can do what you want to. This is one I really thought long and hard about keeping myself. This is a 40-foot reefer lettered for Supreme Biscuit. It's a AHM car. It was actually made by Roco and sold under the AHM name. It may have been sold under the Roco name too. Again, like the other AHM one we had a little bit ago, early 80s is the newest that it would be. It would be most likely from there back into the 1970s, as it was the early 80s, I believe, when AHM gave up the ghost and went out of business. Well, we seem to have a lot of lifelike cars. Here's another one. This is another 30-foot open hopper car. Again, it's just like that Georgia Railroad one we were looking at a few minutes ago. Pretty much the same dimensions. In fact, it's the same body style, This one just has different lettering, Pittsburgh and Shawmut Railroad. And so if you're doing Pennsylvania area railroading, eastern Ohio, places where there's lots of coal, probably steam era, maybe early diesel, this car would fit right into your pike. Just needs some good KD couplers body mounted to it, maybe some metal wheels, and it would be ready to go. Make a coal load and put in there as well. I've actually done that with mine. Maybe we'll do a video sometime showing how we did that. Just with some black sand, flat black paint, and some Mod Podge. That's all you, oil, or foam board sheets too. That's all you need to make your own coal loads. Here's a 40-foot Union Pacific gondola. It's lettered for maintenance of way. This was made by Tyco. I believe probably 1970s era. I actually love these particular Tyco gondolas because they look like they have this heavy-duty, hard-working look. I've got one that's lettered for Southern Pacific in my fleet, and actually I've got one lettered for Monon too. And they just have that good heavy look to them, like they're ready for abuse, ready for work, that kind of thing. So, definitely if you're looking for something, maybe you don't want that one, but you want a freelance road, or maybe you want to letter it for somebody else, there you go. Get it, repaint it, put some wheels and couplers on it, and it's ready to go. This next one I've got two of. These are 40-foot gondolas for Potlatch. And I believe that was a wood company or lumber company up in the northwestern part of the United States. They may still be in business for all I know. I do not know if they ever had gondolas, but I have seen pictures of all-door boxcars lettered for Potlatch before, so I do know that they did have, or at least some kind of train cars. These were made by Lifelike. Surprise, surprise. Again, these are ones that I was tempted to keep, but they really didn't quite fit what I was trying to do with this layout. So we're putting them on eBay, and I'm sure somebody out there maybe want to get both of them and have just a little fleet of them right there. These are nice looking cars. They stand out too with that nice white color, kind of like the Sioux Line equipment. I'll tell you what, we're putting that old locomotive to work pulling these cars. Yes, here's one of the famous Tyco 62-foot box cars. It's a double door, and it's lettered for Hunt's Snack Packs, Hunt's Pudding. And Tyco, of course, had a bunch of these that they did for different companies. We had one recently we sold that was lettered for Del Monte's Peaches. And I actually have thought about getting some for my own fleet. I know they're not prototypical, but I modeled the 1970s, and I tell you what, does not brown, white, and pink scream 1970s to you? Tyco cars scream 1970s to you. This is a cool car. Whether or not it's prototypical, who cares? It's got some dirt and grime and stuff on the top. Again, a good starting point for a weathering job. If it's something you're looking for. And a lot of us do that. You can see the cars behind these. I've done some and woefully behind on others. Well, coming up to the end of the train, we have a couple of cabooses here. First off, we have this Santa Fe caboose. This is a Lifelike caboose. And again, this style, I don't know, Lifelike must have made 1 million of them. I've got like 6 or 7 of them that are Santa Fe or Union Pacific. And eventually they're going to get repainted into one of my own lines, either the Belt Line or the Raleigh, Asheville, and Western, or the Detroit, Indianapolis, and Nashville. That's our 3 freelance lines we use on this railroad. This other one here is a Tyco caboose. It doesn't actually have a particular rail line lettered for it, but I do think that it was part of a train set at one time, although I cannot tell you what it was. I don't think, I started to say Chattanooga choo-choo, but I don't think so. I think those cabooses had Chattanooga on them. But, that said, if you have a railway, maybe you're doing a short line railroad and you just need one caboose, there you go. Get that one right there, and all you got to do is just put whatever the initials for your railroad is. It's already got a number on it. Or, of course, you can take it and tear it apart, repaint it, and put another type of decal on it, and then put it all back together. So either way, it's a great kit bashing project, or use it as it is, or just do a little touch up to it. any of those ways. And that's a nice thing about any of these cars. You know, you get them and maybe there's something that you want a little bit different about it. If you're new to model trains, that's what we do all the time. We take cars, we tear them apart, repaint them, weather them, you know, do stuff like that all the time. So there's nothing wrong with doing that. Or if you want, just run it as it is. You know, again, you know, whatever you like to do, you have that freedom to do it. Don't let anybody tell you any differently or tell you how to run your railroad. That pretty much wraps up this section right here. We're going to take a quick break, but we've got a few more cars to show you here in just a couple of moments. Stick around. Got just a few more cars here to show you before we get out of here. Let's start with this 50-foot flat car. It's an old Athearn Blue Box kit. Comes set up for the body-mounted couplers. It doesn't have any couplers on it right now. It's also missing the metal clips that hold the couplers in place. Now those are easy to find. You can get them almost any hobby store. If they don't have them, they can order them for you. Of course, you can order them online. Or if you're like a lot of us, you may have some extra ones laying around in one of your parts bins somewhere. Also, we have this ore car. This is an old AHM car. It has had some conversion done to it. It has had body-mounted couplers installed. It is missing one. The other one is broken, so it does need replaced as well. But other than that, quick replacement of couplers, it's ready to go. I have a couple of these here. I've only got one in the picture, but I do have a couple of these boxed still, brand new, Bachmann Union Pacific 40-foot open hopper cars. And, you know, never have been run. They have the truck-mounted horn hook couplers, which, of course, easily convertible over to body-mounted knuckles, whether it's KD or McHenry or whatever kind you like to use. The paint scheme is sort of prototypical, but not quite prototypical. By that I mean, I don't think Union Pacific ever had any actual yellow hopper cars. None that I have ever seen. I have seen ones that were brown or boxcar red that did have this type of lettering on it, but it was in yellow to show up on the brown or boxcar red colors. But you know what I like about these Bachmanns? They're relatively inexpensive, but they're durable and they work well. And again, just a little bit of conversion and they're ready to go. You know, as I said, like the couplers and put some metal wheels on them. And that's a great thing, especially if you're a freelancer like I am, where you have your own railroad and you want a whole fleet of hopper cars. You know, maybe you're doing a coal railroad. Well, just get several of these Bachmanns, paint them up to your whatever color your railroad is, and put your decals on it. And there you go. You've got your own fleet. They all look similar. And that's what we like to see when we do these kinds of things. This is a 50-foot or 56-foot covered hopper car, cylindrical style. These were made by Model Power back in the 1980s. Don't know if they made it into the 90s or not, but I do know that they were 1980s era. In fact, I've got 4 or 5 of them myself in my own fleet. This one's lettered for the Burlington Northern. In real life, I don't know if they ever had any cylindrical ones or not. They were more of a staple of the Canadian roads, Canadian Pacific, Canadian National, maybe a couple of the smaller lines up there. They may have had some lettered for the Grand Trunk Western and a couple of their United States subsidiaries as well. I can't tell you for sure on that. But they're not bad little cars. Somebody has modified this one for body-mounted couplers, and in fact one of them has fallen off at some point before I got it, but the other one is still on. So the missing one, very easy, simple to replace. And I'll tell you something else that's really nice about these. Kit bashing. I'm going to try to move the phone here slightly, or the camera, and without trying to jar you too much, so you can see what you can do with one of these. There you go. You see that white Missouri Pacific covered hopper? Yeah, now you can't see the bays underneath. It's been converted from a 4-bay to a 3-bay. But that's what you can do with these model-powered cylindrical covered hopper cars. I did that early this year, first kit bash project I ever did. Missouri Pacific had a car that looked similar to that, and I just wanted to see if I could do it. So I took one of mine, and there you go. End result. It's not perfect, but it's good enough for my railroad, and something for you to think about trying if you'd like. And last but not least, I've got a couple of 40-foot tank cars here. I believe both of these are Athearn Blue Box era tank cars. They do have the body-mounted couplers. They are knuckle couplers, and they were designed for the body-mounted couplers. It's not something that someone converted. They do have metal wheels, which I don't think are original to them, but I will not swear to that. This one here on the right is lettered for the U.S. Department of Defense, and the one on the left is lettered for Continental Oil, and they're both 40-foot tank cars. They would look good on any Pike that is being modeled from whatever decade, from the 80s on back to the 40s and 50s. They would look right at home on there. Well, that concludes our look at some of our model train equipment that we have in our eBay and Etsy stores. Once again, I want to remind you to click that like button down there if you enjoyed this video. And, well, even if you didn't enjoy it, click like and make me feel good. Also, you can hit the subscribe button down there as well. And I have links in the description below to both our eBay and Etsy stores. Be sure to check them out. We have, of course, obviously model trains, but we have a lot of other things too. Books, clothes, records, CDs, movies, some photographic equipment, home decor, a lot of French home decor, courtesy of Allie, Christmas items, and a whole lot more. If you sit there and look for a little bit, I'm almost positive you'll find a few things that you'll just have to have. If not, your wife will. Anyway, make sure you check it out. Click those links down below. We'll have more videos coming up real soon. Once again, thank you for joining me for this look at some of these great train cars, and have a great day.